welcome to my claw guide. This is the fitting that I recommend for the claw. I have 3 highest tier autocannons in the tops, with a small neut, which is probably the most interchangeable thing on this ship. And you have micro warp drive over sleeve scram, damage control, small rep, gyro, and a 200mm plate. I'll say that the high is the most interchangeable because I think if you downgrade the damage control to a named damage control, you can get a nosferatu on here, which will give you a bit more sustainability. I like the small neut because I think it's better in 1v1 duels. It gives you a bit more assassination power, and it means you can win against ships like the Crusader, which you otherwise can't win against. Alternatively, you can also go for a rocket launcher in the high slot, which will give you a bit more DPS. I don't like it though, because a lot of the DPS from the rocket launcher, which is about 20 DPS, is going to get mitigated because you don't have a web to help apply your damage. And a lot of interceptors inherently, because of their small signature radius and high speeds, are already mitigating a lot of damage. So you're probably only going to get like an extra 10 DPS from a rocket launcher, which isn't so great. I think it's definitely not as good as having a neut or a NOS in the high slot. As for implants, I always go cheap, and 3% projectile, 3% hull are going to cost you about 600,000 ISK for both of them together. For the rigs, I'm not completely sold on the rigs yet. Right now I'm using a Tech 2 projectile burst area, which is the rate of fire rig for the most damage, and then I'm using a small auxiliary nanopump for a bit more tank. But I think you could maybe have an ambit rig here instead. You could also have maybe an explosive armor rig, but that would slow you down a bit more. Or you could opt to go for 2 Tech 1 damage rigs, which will give you slightly more damage. 2 Tech 1 damage rigs would be cheaper as well instead of buying the Tech 2 damage rig, but it'll probably be less effective overall, because the Tech 2 damage rig is actually pretty close to 2 Tech 1 damage rigs, and then you lose out on the second rig slot. You can actually upgrade this plate to a 400mm plate, but only if you fit a power grid rig here and you don't use the utility high slot. Or you can, if you fit a 1% power grid implant, you can put a rocket launcher and use it with the 400mm plate, although it kind of defeats the purpose because you lose the 3% projectile implant if you fit a 1% power grid implant, and the DPS between the two is very similar. The reason why I don't like the 400mm plate fit is because I feel like it slows you down too much. You're already pretty slow, and the extra agility penalty from the 400mm plate as well. I really feel like it stops you from catching a lot of ships. Because right now with the 200mm plate, we're about on par with the same speed as a Crow or an Eris, a bit slower than Crusader and the Stiletto, but we can catch those ships by slingshotting them, by using overheat cycles. If you fit the 400mm plate, then you're actually slower than a Tyrannus. So that's the reason why I don't like the 400mm plate fit. So how does the Claw compare to the Crusader, which I already did a guide for? The Claw is a lot slower than the Crusader is, because it has this 200mm plate, and of course the Crusader gets the overdrive injector here instead. So the Claw is less agile, and it's not as fast. You know, it's actually about 500 ms slower with MWD on about 60 ms slower with on base speed. Also, the Crusader has higher damage output than the Claw does at all ranges. The Crusader has excellent projection with Scorch and with Imperial Navy frequency, and since it has higher raw damage than the Claw as well, it outdamages the Claw at all ranges. What the Claw has though is the Claw has the utility high, in this case a neut, but you can also have a NOS, and the Claw also brings a higher buffer and capless guns and the flexibility of autocannons, being able to switch damage types. Anyway, let's look at some examples of some fights that I've had over the past few days. Okay, so in this fight with the Stiletto, there was an NU on the other side of the gate, but this Stiletto just went for me, so I decided I was going to engage him. because I thought I could kill him very quickly. When you're trying to assassinate a target as fast as possible, you want to be as close as possible to them, so you do your full damage with autocannons. You don't want to be in fall off, even if that means taking more damage from the stiletto. Okay, so this is a slightly longer fight against a Merlin and 2 stilettos that I end up killing, with also a Phobos and a Pilgrim on grid eventually. Anyway, so against a Merlin, you want to stay, obviously they have blasters, you want to try and stay outside blaster range, but you don't really want to be forced to use barrage. So I tried to stay within decent EMP range, but outside sort of antimatter range against this guy, which works pretty well because he doesn't do much damage to me at all. Next I've gone to the stiletto, but the stiletto is actually pretty fast, and he's orbiting me quite. I think he has orbit 15 kilometers or something on me, and I know I can't actually get on top of him by hitting approach on him. So what I decided to do is to burn away, which is actually pretty nice that I did that, because I wasn't actually using the directional scanner very well in this fight, and yeah, as you can see, Phobos comes in, which I don't want to be anywhere near, and then a Pilgrim comes in as well, on top of another stiletto. So I burn away, and what I want to do is burn away from him, then come back in on him as soon as my my MWD cycle is sort of ending. Then I can overheat and get on top of him. I do, but he ends up overshooting me. And this other stiletto actually comes in and decides to go on me at 0 for some reason. So just decide to fight him at 0. This stiletto actually has a scram, and he will scram me. And I get tracking disrupted by the Pilgrim as well, which is a problem. When you're tracking disrupted, really you just want to be as close as possible. And in this fight, I just want to be as close as possible to these stilettos, because I just want to kill them as fast as possible. If this Pilgrim gets on top of me, I'm dead. End of story. But luckily, he dies, and I'm able to turn my MWD back on and start running. And this Pilgrim doesn't get into web range or scram range of me, or medium neut range, which is very good. And here I demonstrate this slingshot technique again. Really, is just burn away. The Pilgrim is really slow, so I just come back in on the stiletto. So if he has orbit on me, what's going to happen is his orbit's going to widen, then he's going to come closer. Then suddenly, even though I'm slower than him, I can get straight on top of him. And this time he doesn't overshoot me. So this time he's completely dead. And unfortunately for him, the Pilgrim's out of range, and he's going to die before the Pilgrim can come help. I don't really know why the Pilgrim didn't put drones on me. If he put drones on me, I wouldn't have been able to kill this. I would have had to leave instead. Okay, so this is a fight against the Crusader and a Venture. The Venture has blasters fit. I'm sort of watching their positioning and trying to start this fight as ideally as possible, because I can't really fight the Crusader and the Venture at the same time. I want to kill the Venture as soon as possible because he has the highest damage output. So with a Venture, they actually have really low effective hit points, so you can gank them really fast. So even if they have blasters, the best method usually is just to get on top of them, just so you can just get rid of them as fast as possible. And the Venture dies, and the Crusader makes the mistake of sort of just coming in on me at 0. He just hits approach. If you're fighting against a Claw in the Crusader, what you want to do is you want to stay in scorch range as much as possible. And if you're flying my Crusader fit against this Claw, you're actually faster than the Claw, so you can just kite it indefinitely. Just stay at 6 or 7 kilometers shooting scorch. The Claw is always going to do less effective damage than you, and you're just going to win the exchange. And there's no way that the Claw can win the fight. You just want to stay outside small neut range as well. So you want to be at 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers. You're faster than the Claw. He shouldn't be able to approach you or get on top of you, and you just do more damage than him with better projection. A Crusader does double the DPS of a Claw at that range. So on this fight, a stiletto comes in at range, and I just go back in on him. It's not really much to talk about here, aside from just killing this stiletto as soon as possible. One of the things that I need to get better at is using the directional scanner more often, because often I'm surprised by ships coming in. But anyway, this stiletto kites me a little bit outside range, so I'm not doing my full damage to him. But he's going to die anyway. And then a claw comes in, which unfortunately isn't very well fit. But yeah, this stiletto does a good job of you know, keeping himself alive as long as possible. And then this claw decides to go on top of me. And when the stiletto dies, and then we go back, just go on this claw. And when you're fighting against another claw, I'm not really sure. I think ideally you want to have fusion loaded, because the majority of claws are buffer fitted, or are going to have a small rep. You know, in this case I had phase plasma loaded, which I didn't really have a choice to change in the fight. And another thing is, when you're fighting against a claw, obviously his cap doesn't matter in the fight, respective to yours. So you want to save your cap for the small rep. Okay, so this is a fight against a malediction. Against a malediction, like every missile ship, just want to get on top of them as fast as possible, so you can do your full autocannon DPS to them. There's no point to being full of versus them, because the missiles are always going to hit you regardless of what range you're at. And the other ships you really want to kite with the claw are Raptor, Tyrannus and Eris, if they have blasters fit. Everything else you just want to get on top of them, either because they out damage you at range, like the Crusader, or because they're going to do full DPS to you anyway, so you might as well just do your full DPS to them. Okay, so this is a fight against the Tyrannus. He did cloaks right next to me as we both jump on the same gate. In ideal circumstances, you want to have barrage loaded, and you want to kite him at 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers. Unfortunately, because I had phase plasma already loaded, I didn't have the best damage type. That's why I tried to stay about 4 kilometers from him. So at least then he would have to use null, and then our damage is about equal, except I have a better buffer than him. Okay, your neut is maybe a bit more valuable than the rep is in this fight, because the Tyrannus does just so much DPS. Shutting down its guns with the neut is more valuable, and also you're not going to rep as much of its effective DPS as you are with the rep. Focusing on the neut more is probably more beneficial overall. Alright, so this is a fight against a Saber, which is not something you should fight normally. This Saber actually makes a very big mistake, which is he just approaches me at 0. And what that allows me to do is I get an orbit on him. Now the Saber does have a 50% tracking bonus, which is a very powerful bonus, but one of the huge strengths of the Claw is actually has a 30M sig, which is the lowest sig for a ship in the game. It's shared with 2 other ships, so it's actually very hard to track, even with bonus gun, even with 50% tracking bonus. This Saber also makes a mistake in the fact that he has a fall off bonus and I don't, so he should just, you know, use that to his advantage. He should just, you know, keep at range where his DPS, where his fall off bonus is going to give him a DPS advantage. So this is a fight against an Ares with a few other things on grid. This is just another example of on grid separation. You can see that the signable and the Jaguar aren't quite in range to warp to us, so I just go back in on this as soon as I get to the edge of gang warp range. And this Atron can warp in on us right now, and I think that's what he actually does. Yeah, he does that. And the signable and the Jaguar actually start burning away, which is a smart thing to do, because it'll be faster for them to burn away than warp back to us than it would be for them to just burn in. But it's too late anyway. This Eris dies, and the Atron comes in, but he doesn't tackle me, and you know I'm burning anyway. I get a scram on him, and I just keep keep burning away. Then the signable comes in and the Jaguar comes in, so I have to leave. This is a fight against a Federation Navy Comet, or the Pursuit Comet, which is the reskinned version of that. Against this fight, what you want to do is you want to kite them as long as possible and use a barrage. Fortunately, this Comet is actually AB Scram Web, which is not something that I'm particularly well equipped to deal with. So he managed to get on top of me straight away, and this fight is actually pretty close. Yeah, the problem with only having 2 mids is people have range dictation on you, even with whatever they've put in the 3rd mid, and then, you know, it's an AB fit anyway, which is really bad for me. But it actually ends up pretty close. But again, against all blaster ships, you just want to kite them with barrage as much as possible. And that's me dying terribly. So, you know, thanks for watching my video. I'm hoping to get a lot more stuff out this week and by the end of next week, and hopefully I'll do a lot of coverage for the Kronos expansion. Unfortunately, it hasn't come out on CC quite yet, but all the pirate ships are being rebalanced. There's going to be new Mordus Legion ships, which I'm really excited about. They're going to be missile kite ships, so I'm hoping to fly the new pirate frigates. So yeah, you know, thanks for watching.